Good. Okay. Well, I am glad to have you all here. You got Julie, you got Gloria, you've got Lynette. All of you all have been with me before. I'm recording this now. Laura's not with us, so she wanted me to make sure that I recorded it. And it's nice that you all have all been with me, and I know your skills. You all are good. So this is a good topic to talk about now. So first of all, I'm going to share my screen with you all. There we go. Start here. And all of you all can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Super. And all of you all can hear me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay, we're in good shape. And you got your hand out?
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, super. Okay. What's your biggest thing that you grapple with composition? Gloria, we'll start with you.
For me, I want to learn what to think about when taking a photo. I want to shift from taking snapshots,
Uh-huh.
taking photos.
Okay. Good.
And especially when I travel, but also just in general, I just don't know what to be thinking about other than, oh, this looks like it'd be an interesting picture, interesting things in it.
Okay. Good. Julie?
Like, oh. So I have been trying to frame things, and for a long time when I was taking the classes at COM, we always were taking pictures off to the side, and now I'm trying to get back to the middle and just getting that good picture. I'm doing the good picture, but I want to make the great picture.
Okay. Good. Lynette?
I have, of course, everybody has their own ideas of composition, and I do too. I just want to learn from the expert and your ideas of what a good composition is, because also I want to take the whole thing in, and I've never had a wide lens to actually do that. That's why I'm excited with my new lens. And I also tend to get when you do how do you call that? They from right to left when you go on your phone.
Panorama. Yeah.
Panorama. I love to take that. But of course, there's another class with you.
Yeah.
But when you do that, it looks kind of curved, not the way I want it to be. And so I want to hear from the expert.
Okay, good. Well, I think that what you're saying, all of you all are saying, is that you've kind of gotten the basics down. So we don't have to think so much about f-stop and shutter speed and, ISO as much anymore. But now we're trying to get to the point where the picture looks better. And that's exactly what composition is. And when we start thinking about composition, so when you're thinking about composition, what you're adding is that unity to your photo. So you're creating the harmony in your photo, or you're trying to create some harmony. You're trying to create balance in your photo and order with all of the different elements in the photograph. And you're trying also to organize everything with the elements, the shapes, the patterns, that type of thing. So in other words, we're kind of taking a messy cabinet and organizing it and putting it to where it's got some unity to it and it's got some harmony to it. And many times in nature, it's very difficult to pull all of that together, but that's what we're trying to do with composition. And so looking through that viewfinder and moving beyond the basics of f-stop and shutter speed and trying to get to where we are creating a good photo, which is exactly what you all are talking about. Now, we've got to also think of it in terms of, it's a rectangle. That's the size of all of our photos. Our photos are all rectangles. but we have to create a space inside of that rectangle that people want to look at. And that space has negative space and that space has positive space in it. So the positive space is where our subject is, and the negative space is around our subject. So we've got negative space and positive space. And why we need to be concerned about this is that you're telling the viewer, this is what's important, and this is what I want you to look at. And then from there, this is where I want your eye to go. So you are instructing the viewer to look one place and then look someplace else or take something in. I look over Gloria's head in her screen capture that she's got right now, and I see that picture on the wall behind her. And my eye is just totally drawn to that picture, because if you notice what the artist has done is the dark area of the tree is where the artist wants you to enter, and then the artist wants you to move over. See that, Gloria?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so even though I can't see it very big, I know exactly what the artist wants you to do because of the composition of it. And so it's really capturing the essence of the image. So, you know, the essence, I'll go back to that picture over Gloria's head, is it's kind of, you know, it's a kind of a stormy, maybe dawn or maybe sunset or maybe, you know, change in weather type image. That's what it looks like to me anyway. And so it's the essence of it. So it's pulling out that feeling as well. It's removing all the clutter that we don't need, and then centers the image, but not necessarily putting it in the center. It's creating what the center of the image is and what we want you to look at. Hopefully we're creating something different. And then hopefully by this stage in your photography life, you're also creating stories. So we'd like that image to be a standalone image sometimes and be able to tell a story. That's what we're looking for. So that's where we are with composition. A little bit deeper thought process, but also trying to communicate to your audience and to your viewer. So when you're looking through your viewfinder and you see that rectangle, you've got to think about, this is the focal point. This is the point where I want somebody's eye to start in the photo. But we don't want any stray objects in the picture that also tell the viewer, look here, look here, look here, or look here, or look here, or look here, or maybe settle here. So do we want them to go from the top down and around, or do we want them to go here? So we've got to think about what every single element in the photo is doing to the viewer's eye and where the viewer's eye is being pulled. If the viewer's eye is being pulled in too many different directions, then they're not going to want to look at the picture at all because it's totally confusing. And so, you know, if we give them too much stuff to look at, then the viewer just doesn't even want to stay on this picture because it's way too confusing. Oh, you know, and maybe forget about what's here. So if we throw too many things at people, then it's just not a pleasant picture to look at. So this photo, for instance, you know, if you look at it, you would think that it's got a lot of different elements. But if you remember from basic photography class that the viewer always looks at white first, and then they go to the primary colors, reds, yellows, and blues. So our eye always goes to white first. And then from there, it goes to the reds, yellows, and blues. So we've got some white here. We've got some blue here. But if you think about this photo and deconstruct it, do I want the viewer to look here? Or do I want the viewer to look here? Or do I want the viewer to look here? And then what the heck am I doing with this big, huge diagonal line that leads the eye, but unfortunately doesn't lead the eye into the frame, kind of leads the eye out of the frame. So if you notice in this image, there's too many distracting things. And as a result, people aren't going to want to look at it. You know, they're just going to, you know, okay. But it's not a picture anybody's going to hang on their wall for any long period of time because there's nothing to look at. There's nothing settling about it. It's just got too much stuff. So I needed to work on this a little bit more to figure out what it is. And as a contrast, by putting my focus point on this yellow box, now remember that's one of the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. By putting my focus point on this yellow box and then softening the rest of the image with the 4.5 or 5.6 f-stop, because I don't need a lot of depth of field in this image at all, then this gives the viewer a place to settle and then look and wander around and look, but not in a distracted way, I hope anyway, but more in an organized way. So allowing the viewer to settle and then look around and study without feeling like they're being drug all over the photo, but being able just to study it in one cohesive unit. So how to do it? One focal point. And by focal point, what I mean is the place that's in focus that you want the viewer to start the entry of the photo. Usually the viewer enters the photo at wherever it is in focus. So the tightest focus point, the best focus point is usually where the viewer's eye goes. So that's where you and I put our focus point when we're designing the photo. So there's one thing that they can settle their eyes on. Anything that's out of focus, remember that humans don't study. They don't go there and dwell. They just use it as kind of a background. So there's not a lot of other elements in this picture for the viewer to actually go read and study. So there's one focus point, focal point, and then moving the eye around the frame. We can also do that with contrast. So one thing's in focus, and that's the Buddha. But then the Buddha is so much lighter than the other elements behind it that this is, once again, through the lightest object and the focus point, focal point, telling viewers start here and then just kind of let your eyes drift around the rest of the photo, but don't go study everything. Because if I give them everything to study, then they might, in my opinion on this image, they might get lost in all kinds of other stuff. And that's your decision to decide whether you do an f4.5 or 5.6 in this instance, or whether you do an f22. And many times I'll shoot something like this at an f5.6, an f8, and an f22. Because it might be that I change my mind once I get back and start looking at it. This one also, you all, it's nice to have all three of you here because I know that you all have developed your skills. This is post-processed in either Lightroom or Adobe Camera Raw, whichever one you want to use. And instead of moving the saturation and vibrance sliders to the right to make the colors more pronounced, I have moved the saturation and vibrance sliders to the left to almost make it a black and white. If you move the saturation and vibrance sliders all the way to the left, you make your picture a black and white. I didn't move it all the way, and that left the yellows and the golds in the picture. So otherwise there's all kinds of color in here. But by moving that saturation slider and vibrance slider to the left instead of to the right, I got rid of the colors, but I kept the gold. So just a little processing tip there. So contrast, the difference between the bright and the dark, will also help you compose, because the viewer's eye is going to go to the bright area first, and then the dark area, we're either going to go study if I let you see it, or we're just going to take it into account for what's in the rest of the picture. Window dressing, kind of. So it depends on what you let people see and don't see. So contrast. We have the dark window up at the top, and we have the rose down at the bottom. Which one does your eye go to first?
Rose.
The
Rose.
rose?
Yep.
Both, everybody the rose?
Oh, yeah.
Rose.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I go back and don't show it to you and then come back to it, the rose first?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So hopefully we've got the contrast between the two of them, the dark area, the light area, the repeated shape, kind of, coming back to it. So contrast can work. Isolation can work also. So we're not letting the viewer see anything else except the frog shadow on the leaf. So isolation will also work. So we're just isolating our subject against its background. And then also a change in textures will work. So the textures between the softness of the blue bonnets and the contrasting shapes up in the sky. So we've got a change in texture and shapes will also help to change our viewers' opinion also. The sky here for you all was reprocessed with Nik, N-I-K, and that was to bring out the clouds in the sky. So only the top portion of the photo has been reprocessed in Nik. So I just did that through a mask. And then that brought out the clouds and made them appear much more ominous than they actually were. We can do our contrast also in a change of color. And you notice here we've got blue and gold. We'll talk about this as we go through also when we put those colors on the color wheel across from each other. So in this one, we've got a contrast also between the two color changes, the blues and the golds. You can also add that contrast once again by having something coming into your image, directly coming into your image. So in this case, the jaguar coming at the viewer, not directly at the viewer, but at the viewer, can add a compositional element as well, coming towards you. And then of all the pictures I took, the one with the raised paw and the one with the open mouth, so you take those 15 or 20 images and you choose the one that pulls all the images, all the elements together. So subject coming into the frame, subject coming into the frame, moonrise coming over Sevilla. So subject coming into the frame, and then using that motion blur. So we also have to create balance out of all that chaos. Obviously, a historic village like this one in Romania, it hasn't been designed by city planners. They didn't put the building here and the streets here, and it's not laid out for harmony. And it wasn't definitely laid out for harmony from this hillside view. So we have to take all of that chaos and create some sort of a balance in it. So to your eye, what's the focal point? Where do I want you to come in?
Big church or building or whatever that is.
Big church, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Gloria, Lynette?
Yeah, that's exactly where my eyes went.
Yeah.
And the fog.
And the
Yeah.
fog?
Yeah.
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 I like that misty look.
Yeah. So by pulling your eye in up there, which is what I was hoping to do, and then, you know, you've got that other little misty fog to look at. And then I hope maybe your eyes come down then and start looking at the rooftop and
Yes.
all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you notice there's not a whole lot up in the sky to draw your eye up there. So it's to kind of put your eye in, settle in, and then you can come down and start looking around, seeing what's going on. So when you're looking through that viewfinder, you're asking yourself, where do I want my viewer's eye to go from here? Where do I want them to enter? How do I want them to look around? And you're trying to compose all of those elements so that there's nothing that distracts them and draws them away off into something that you don't want them to look at. So it's some thought, it's some internal dialogue when you're looking through the viewfinder. So we've also got symmetry in our balance. So when we're talking about balancing the frame, the obvious one is symmetry. This is the easiest one. And I kind of want you to take on page 2 these ideas and maybe go out and see if you can find a picture and create a picture that has these ideas. Give yourself an assignment to take something that's symmetrical. So symmetrical, it's easy to do. Julie, you got those little dogs all over the place. You know, they got 2 eyes. It's easy to do symmetry on them. So symmetrical, those 2 eyes looking directly at you. Would I have liked the little, you know, to have a little head tilt a little bit more so that I got total symmetry? Yeah. But, you know, if I take away the little line through the picture, we've still got symmetry. Those big bulging eyes, those big bulging eyelashes, those ears, the 2 little horns, you know, we've still got some symmetry going on. Symmetry with the canyon. So the total balanced symmetry is one of the easiest compositional elements to do, just making the left side look exactly like the right side. That's the easiest thing to do. And, you know, little girl coming back from the bakery. So, you know, she's just kind of right in the middle. And even if she wasn't right in the middle when I took the picture, maybe we go ahead and crop it so she is right in the middle. I've left it here just a little off center for you, but maybe we go ahead because that red, whatever that is, plastic thing over on the right-hand side. I think I've still got my cursor in there. There we go. This red thing that has the potential of pulling your eyes away from you. So maybe it gets cropped right here so that the red bicycle doesn't pull your eye away from it. But it's that symmetry of her coming back from the bakery. Symmetry. And, you know, it's beautiful with architecture because most architects have built something that's fairly symmetrical. And if you get around anything, any of the Moorish architecture, like in this one in southern Spain, then all of that is built around symmetry and getting everything totally symmetrical. And then that symmetry also applies to horizontal lines as well as vertical lines. Symmetry, connecting once again with those horizontal lines. And we get symmetry so that where everything's balanced on one side, looking exactly like the left side, right side looks like the left side, and getting everything so that it's totally balanced in a symmetrical image. And so symmetry is always a nice thing to do. But then we've got asymmetry. So maybe you spend the rest of this week or the next week working on symmetry, and then you go to asymmetrical images. So asymmetrical images are where one side does not balance the other side. The human eye always goes to the eye of the subject. So wherever the eye of the subject is, that's where the human eye enters. And that should be our focus point, the point where the photo is definitely in focus. And then that becomes our focal point, FOCAL point, where we want the viewer to enter. And then we want the viewer to study everything from here on. So asymmetrical image with this leopard in the tree becomes that off to the center, enter, but then we've got all kinds of stuff to look at. The way his paws are holding himself on the tree over on the left-hand side of it, where he's got his toes extracted and his claws in there. So we pull everything together with that asymmetrical image, hopefully. asymmetrical once again. So focus point over on the side, focal point where I want you to enter, and then I want you to look around the image and study the rest of the image, but not necessarily go and look at everything. This is the stone carver's signature in a 14th century abbey in Ireland. And asymmetrical. What do you think? Is it pleasing to you or is it distracting to you?
I think it makes it more interesting.
You think it makes it more interesting?
Yeah, yeah.
You go bam right into the boat and then you're
Right.
everywhere else.
Lynette?
My eyes would have preferred the boat a little bit further back.
Further back, not so much in your face.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you know, cleaning pictures up, we could go in and get rid of this little gull up on the line, the light right here. This is one of those images where I would have preferred the boat to be facing into the frame, but you know, I'm not going to go ask the guys to move their boat, you know. And then the boat facing this direction out of the frame, there wasn't anything over on the other side to make it interesting.
Oh,
It is the brightest area of the frame. So it's one of those where I kind of debate whether I like it or not, because it is leading your eye out of the frame, but then there's enough stuff over on the other side of the frame.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, we can also sit behind that camera and go, oh, I don't know. You know, I don't know if this works or not. But Gloria, you said it worked for you, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So it, you know, we can also sometimes just want to throw the image out there sometimes and just see what other people think about it.
I mean, I don't feel like when I look at, I start with the boat on the left and then I shift to the right, and I don't feel like there's conflicting things all drawing my attention. It just seems like it's a progression. Look to the boat
Okay.
on the right and look what's behind it, and then look at that turret behind it,
Yeah.
and then
yeah.
that bird way back there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And we've got the blue and the gold, of course. You know, we've got the color harmony.
Well, it's like the background's the story that goes with the boat, you know,
Uh-huh.
leads
Yeah.
you into the town.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've also got, in addition to symmetry and asymmetry, we've also got golden thirds. And this is where we divide the frame into 9 equal rectangles. And we put the most interesting element on one of those intersecting lines. We choose which one we use based on which way the subject is facing. So here we've got golden thirds, and we've got the very large sausage tree in Africa. And then it fits right on the golden third right here. Hopefully that's where the viewer's eye, where I want the viewer's eye to enter. And then the viewer now can look at everything, because I'm giving the viewer, through everything being in focus, the ability to see everything, to look at everything. And so by placing the sausage tree on the golden third instead of right in the middle, then that lets the viewer's eye circle around, or that's what we're hoping for with golden thirds. So golden thirds, and golden thirds, by the way, goes back to the ancient Greeks. So in Western civilization composition, golden thirds is kind of a cornerstone. It's one of the important factors that we've used in our composition dating back to the ancient Greeks. So golden thirds. So reminding yourself that your eye always goes to the white area of the frame first. So this gives me a place where I'm going to put the albatross, because our eye is going to go on the white area of the frame first, using my wide angle lens to show the habitat of the nesting albatross in the Galapagos Island, and not having that albatross right smack dab in the middle of the frame, but also she's looking into the frame. So hopefully the viewer's eye then enters where the albatross is, follows the arc of the rocks, either left or right, because I'm, you know, in this case, now that I'm looking at it, the rocks can form a curve going this way or this way. And then, but your entry point is here and the albatross is looking in. And so that's making the viewer's eye go into the frame. So,
That and the
it's,
flowers lead you up the path, so to speak.
you got the flowers leading you up the path. Yeah. Yeah. So in composing it, it makes it somewhat easy. Now, also remember that in your digital SLR cameras, not your mirrorless. Gloria, are you using mirrorless?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So we don't even have to talk about digital SLRs anymore, because in digital SLRs, we had a focus point right here that we could activate. We had a focus point here we could activate, a focus point here, and a focus point here. So in digital SLRs that had 9 focus points, 4 of them were on the golden thirds. They were there for a reason. Now that we're in mirrorless, then we can just focus any place we want on the frame. So it makes it easy. But in this case, we can go over, it just depends on where we position that subject. So a conscious positioning of that albatross. And then we've got what's called golden mean. And it's moving a little closer in from golden thirds. So moving into those little dots inside the golden thirds. And so this is where we would position, once again, our most important point where we want the viewer's eye to enter and then move around in the frame. So we can position it right smack dab on that golden third, or we can go golden mean and move a little bit more in. So golden mean is moving a little bit more into the frame. Golden mean moving a little bit more into the frame. So it's a conscious decision you're making that, and you know, this is a booby preening. His head's moving really, really fast. So I'm not consciously deciding to put his eye right there. I just know that I need his eye either on the golden third or on the golden mean. I just know, because his beak is facing this way, that I need that eye to be up there in that corner of that frame. Golden mean. And then we've got the golden spiral. And golden spiral goes back to nature for things like the nautilus shell, the way that sunflower seed heads spiral. Golden spiral there's a lot of it in nature, a whole lot of it in nature. And it's this thing where we make a square and then we make another square and then we make another square and another square and another square and another square. That's where the golden spiral comes from. It's just this math formula of making smaller and smaller squares inside of after we've made the big square. And we're dealing with a rectangle. So it's this golden spiral. It's this spiraling around. And it's putting our most interesting element on that golden spiral. So the tree is, if you look at it, it's still a golden third, or, you know, it could still be the golden third. It could still be the golden mean, or it could be the golden spiral. So when we're thinking about putting elements in the picture, then thinking along those, which are somewhat repetitious in their own right, but just show us where we put the element as opposed to smack dab in the middle of the frame. So questions before I leave those? Nope. Okay, good. So practice those and see if you can put those in your pictures. Or go back and look at your pictures that you like and see if you can find examples of those. And then we come to framing the subject. So framing the subject also tells the viewer where to look and where I want you to look. So to me, in this picture, I've got this rock wall on the right-hand side. I've got this archway on the left-hand side. So I've kind of got an anchor and I've got the archway. The archway has another anchor in that it has the street light above it. Now all I need is the perfect thing to walk through there. This is a little village called called, God, I just went totally blank. Anyway, it's the Blue Village in northern Morocco. And it's totally painted blue all over the place and all kinds of different shades of blue. So all it takes is one thing to come through that archway to make my picture. And me as a photographer, that means I just sit there and wait for something to come through it. So framing the subject is where you find the frame and then, or the subject. In this case, the little fountain caught my eye.
Kathy, I'm gonna ask you a question. Will you go back to the picture before in the blue?
Yeah.
book? Why is it more interesting with the person there than with the nothing there, and you just are looking at the framing of the curve of the entryway, and you just see the contrast of the colors and all? Why is it more interesting to have the person there?
I think it's more interesting to have a person in there. Lynette, Julie, what do you think?
I think it adds more of a story to it. You
Yes.
know, it kind of completes the story of just maybe being an abandoned street, but the type of person that's going to go there.
I think I like it both, with and without the person.
I think it can go both ways. I totally agree with you. The person shows us where we are, the context.
Right.
The men in Morocco wear points on the top of their jalabas. If you go to other Arabic countries, their jalabas have different structures to them. Coming through with his kerosene bottle, I think tells a little bit more of a story with his cane.
Yes.
But anybody coming through there would tell a totally different story. So a young woman with tight boots and tight pants and the headscarf would tell a totally different story. A little kid with a wagon would tell a totally different story.
Mhm.
A cat would tell a totally different story.
That's interesting because, as I was saying at the beginning, I want to learn what to think about when I look through that viewfinder and what I want to say in the picture.
Yeah.
And I usually default to, oh, the architecture, what the picture is, rather than telling a story.
Yeah.
But I see what you
Yeah.
mean now with when you put a person in there, it changes completely. And now you're focused on the person and everything else is more of a background.
Yeah.
And it's completely different.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
You know, years ago, Gloria, Gary and I did the book Backroads of the Texas Hill Country. And for once, I needed to include a road in almost every picture. And before that, I had been trying to keep roads out of my pictures. And now I needed to put a road in my picture. And then for years and years and years, I was trying to keep people out of my pictures. And now I'm trying to put people in my pictures. You know?
So interesting. Yeah.
And also in these foreign countries, because of the way people live, it's always interesting for me to see people going about their daily business. And so different from what we would do. Yeah. So you see how it can go either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take a lot of rooftops.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Rooftops are good. Rooftops are very good. And there's always interesting things on rooftops, cats and, you know, stuff like that. There's always interesting stuff on rooftops. And then just the structure of rooftops in different
Yes.
parts of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. So framing, you know, it's one thing if it's the fountain, but then if you put the frame on it, maybe it creates a different type of a photo.
Mhm.
Framing. So it would have been one thing to see the cathedral at dawn, but it's a whole different thing from inside those doors. So framing it. So inside those doors creates something totally different.
I love that photo.
Oh, thank you. I found these doors on Google Earth just, I always, before I go to a location, I study what Google Earth tells me, and I look at the buildings around there, and I wondered if there's a possibility those doors might be open. And when we pushed on them, they were open. They hadn't been latched. And it turns out it's where the workmen enter the Alcazar.
Huh.
And so we just pushed the doors open and then went in there and took the picture.
So when you go on Google Earth, are you just saying like archways and things like that, or how do you
No,
search?
I just start searching the street, what the street view is, and
Mhm.
where I could go to get the spire of the cathedral at dawn.
Okay,
And then I just start looking around the plaza and seeing what's there and what might be there to frame it and that type of stuff.
that's
So
cool.
framing in this case.
I
We've
tend to
also,
take-
yeah,
I
go back.
tend to take gates and doors as well when I'm,
Good. Good. They put it in context because that big, huge, ancient door with all those bangs and scratches in it
Mhm.
puts everything in context.
palace doors,
Yeah.
the old doors, when you go through an old city,
Uh-huh.
they look so different, but I just love, I like them.
Yep. They're great photographic objects. Yes. And then we need to think about leading lines. So, back here in Galveston. So leading lines, where's your eye leading? In this case, down on the bottom, the pieces of granite leading your eye to the red and then leading your eye out. So we've got leading lines here at Jimmy's on Galveston Island. Nice subject to work. I think the view from the other side of this is in Texas Highways either this month or next month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And some back page picture, I think it is, something like that. Leading lines. So remember, your eye goes to the whitest area of the frame first, lightest area of the frame first. That's the coffee cup. And now we've got upward leading lines. So think about where those leading lines lead your eyes. Obvious leading lines here, walkways. And in places that have been architecturally well designed, we have leading lines all over the place, leading us to the buildings that we're looking for. Sky's not great here. Luckily, it's kind of an overcast day, so we don't have a whole lot of shadows in Romania, but we've got a leading line that leads your eye into the frame. Obvious leading lines here. Leading leading the viewer's eye right to where you want them to go. So in other words, what we're doing is we're mentally telling the viewer, follow these lines and look here. And so we're composing our image so that we're leading people right to what we want them to look at and trying to find those leading lines. And when we do find leading lines, we should then be very much paying attention to where those lines lead the viewer and how can I use them to my advantage. So leading lines, the boulders on the beach, leading lines, leading your eye right up to where we want it to go, or hopefully leading the viewer's eye right to where we want them to go. And the foreground becomes super important, really important. So paying attention to what's in the foreground. I put the rocks down in the bottom to kind of give the picture an anchor, because it felt like if I didn't put those rocks down there, all those little bushes just did their own little thing. So the importance of foreground in an image, adding the foreground. So we've got one foreground here, smoothness of the water, but the same beach, same time, just walked a little bit over. Now we get another foreground.
Mhm.
So it's one foreground here and one foreground here. Which one's better for your eye? This one, the first one, or the second one?
I like the water.
You like the water?
I like the water, but I like the texture of the sand too.
Yeah.
I want to be in a peaceful frame of mind. That's what I like.
Yeah. That one's
Don't we
peaceful.
all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one's just calmer, Gloria, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Mhm.
but
But
the
the other
import-
one is really interesting too. I like that one a lot too.
Yeah.
It's just different frame of mind.
different frame of mind, exactly.
That
Exactly.
reminds me of wind.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which one do you like best? A or B? And I'll give
A
you
for
a
me.
A or B.
A.
I think A is more interesting because it doesn't show you everything. It kind of leads you, and then you just kind of use your imagination as what's beyond.
Okay.
I like A.
Mhm.
I do too.
B confuses you. It's like, which way do you go?
Too many things?
I guess,
Mhm.
in a way,
In a way,
this is explains what I was saying. Instead of taking snapshots
Uh-huh.
and take photos, interesting. This to me is what I mean by a snapshot.
Uh-huh.
Trying to get everything in, the different heights, and there's a
Yeah.
boat and all this. But the first one, you don't have to get everything in. You just get like the stairs and the beautiful white contrast with the blue. And then there's something in the background there leading below. You don't know. I think this tells an interesting story. Yeah.
Yeah. But you see how, for instance, with this, you can get totally seduced by all these things.
Yep. Yep.
And trying to make sure you're including all these things. And after a while, you've got too many things
Mhm.
Yep.
and nobody wants to look at it.
Right.
Because in here, you can look at it and you can say, okay, what do you really want me to look at?
Yeah.
But I think you all are right with this one. You've got everything to look at, but you don't necessarily, you can look at whatever you want to
Yeah.
Mhm.
and stay with it for a while.
Yep.
Good. So which one's better for you? Do you like A or do you like B?
Oh,
And I'll let you look at them again. Do you like A or do you like B?
I like both.
Yeah, that one's tricky.
Well,
It's
and
like
B-
I kind of like A the best, but B's real nice, but it's busier, but it's more detailed.
A kind of gives me an overview of the area,
yeah.
and then B puts me a little bit closer to what's there.
Mhm.
I feel like I'm standing in it in B because I see these cactus here, right here in the foreground.
Uh-huh.
Whereas I feel in A, I feel like I'm looking at it from a distance, and you want me just to see the whole panoramic. So I like
A's
A.
Yeah, A is
mean-
a postcard and B is a picture to
Yeah.
a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So building on what Gloria said, A is the view from the car window
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
B is the view if you got out and started walking.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. And really what's going on here is A, the camera is straight ahead, and B, the camera is angled down so that you're
Oh.
seeing less sky and more foreground. And by taking the wide angle lens and angling the camera down, I've made that foreground cactus bigger and more dominant. So A is just camera looking straight at the scene, and B is camera angled slightly down with an anchor point at the bottom,
I can see that.
Yeah.
but same position, same scene. So that angling, especially with your wide angles, so that wide angle, that would be your 15, for instance, or your 10 millimeter, that wide angle, that would tilt it slightly down, and that makes your foreground much, much bigger. You can do the same thing if you tilt it up, that makes your sky bigger. So instead of shooting that wide angle straight ahead, angle it down or angle it up, because it'll accentuate whichever way you angle it. And then we've got diagonals. So diagonal, moving all the way down. So using that diagonal view, cutting across the frame where you can see, this is pretty obvious. The lighted area is your diagonal in Santorini. Oh, the blue village in Morocco, I couldn't remember the name of, Chefchaouen. Okay, now I got my titles back. Diagonal, going back to that boat that we saw earlier, that's drawing my attention now. It's just a plain diagonal, not in the big scene. It's just an individual picture with the diagonal. And then we've also got S curves. So S curves. So the street forming the little curvy things going all the way down, and then waiting for the red tractor to come down. So remember, your eye goes to the primary colors, the reds, the yellows, or the blues. So by having the red tractor come down, that tells the viewer, this is where I want you to enter, and then look around from there. S curve with the wildebeest. And this is what happens when you use your telephoto lens on a big grand landscape. It compresses everything. So where the African plain would go on forever and ever and ever, now everything gets compressed. And then looking for that leading line coming into the S curve. And then we've got a C curve as well. And a C curve, to me, is a little easier to make than an S curve, but it's just that C shape. So that, look at the eye, follow the rest of the boobies features around, and we get that C curve in there. And then we've got what are called power shapes. Power shapes. So power shapes are threes. And I can't tell you the psychology behind it, but humans like three. We like pyramids, we like things that have three corners to them. We like three. And so when the giraffes came up and were pleasant enough to stick their three heads up together, I went, oh my God, it's three. Yeah, take it quick, quick, quick. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. So power shapes, we've got threes, but also Z's are power shapes. And where the C's and the S's, to me, were curves, I think we get power shapes because of the diagonal lines and the sharp edges to it. So a Z is where we've got that line going across, that line going across, and that line going across, a Z shape. This is used a lot in advertising, by the way. And advertising will have the headline up here at the top, an element that you need to look at over here, an element you need to look at over here, and then an element you need to look at over here. So advertising uses Z a lot to just move your eye across the frame. And it's a very powerful compositional element. So Z.
Don't eat that. Go.
And then Z comes into play even with the Arno River in Florence. So the flume going across, the river, the bridge going across, and then the sky. So we've got a Z pattern out of all that chaos. And then we've also got smack dab in the middle of the frame. So this takes us back to that symmetry that we were dealing with before, but that circle right in the middle of the frame. And you notice the zebra's hind end is off to the side just a little bit. But other than that, we've got that kind of symmetry with just a little bit of an added line with his rump going back over to the side. So just trying to get him smack dab in the middle of the frame with this main circle. They're so pretty.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Then we've got swirls. And, swirls like in things like clouds, but swirls, maybe in water patterns or something like that. But that one wisp of that cloud coming off tells me there's a picture here. You might as well go ahead and just start looking through your viewfinder and figuring out what the picture is. And then as I go into the vertical, then I really see that swirl going up. So playing around with those swirls. I just noticed all my little sensor dust too. I need to go in and clean that picture up. Swirls, going back to those stairs. So those swirls through there. Is this too confusing or is it okay?
Actually, this picture, which is, a close-up,
closer.
segment of it, is much more interesting, and your eyes go through it than when it was just one element of the whole picture. When you zoom back, you see so much more. This is a really interesting picture.
Takes away the extra that pulls you away.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you really can focus on all the geometry and all the shapes
Mm-hmm.
and the contrast.
I love these stairs. I think whoever decided to paint these stairs the way they did, obviously you had to do it because, if everything were white, people would be tripping all over the place. But for me as a photographer, it's just heaven.
Yeah,
And just walk along this whole walkway in Santorini and just look at all of these little shapes and patterns going down and the the light and the symmetry of everything, the shadows. I think it's amazing fun to play with. And then repeated patterns. So when we see repeated patterns, we should know, oh, there's a picture there, repeated patterns. And so anytime we see those repeated patterns, then that should tell us as a photographer, stop. There's a picture here. Now we got to figure out what the picture is. Do I show you all the shoes or do I just show you part of the shoes? In this case, I decided to focus on the lighter shoes and then letting the darker shoes be the outside of the picture. Repeated patterns. Repeated patterns can be industrial as well as anything else. So repeated patterns, just simply what those repeated patterns are, and then focusing in on those repeated patterns. And you see how much we like repeated patterns, the way that we lay shops out, the way that we design our buildings. We like repeated patterns. And when we see those repeated patterns, then we as a photographer should know there's a photo there. Let's work on that. Let's see what happens when we put those repeated patterns in. Repeated patterns. So, these are just in us, in our DNA almost, even though our DNA is a repeated pattern, if you think about it. So, we like those repeated patterns. So when we have a repeated pattern, do you like this one better, A, or do you like B? Do you like A or
A.
B?
I like both.
I like A. It's more. Scare the cat with that one.
well, A is more directly and it's more perfectly symmetrical.
Symmetrical.
Whereas B, you're kind of looking at it off to the side, which I think is still, I like that a lot. You see more of the arches, the archway and the shadows that it throws off. And you can see more into the right side, what's off to the right, but you still see everything you saw before in the symmetry. I like B.
Whoops, I'm sorry. So A, Lynette?
Like I said, I like both. I like the directness of the A.
Yeah.
I did
Mm.
like the side view of the B to where I can see a little bit more to one side. I do. I like both.
Gives you a bit more
If
information.
I was in the same place, I probably would do both.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and that's where you do both.
Yeah.
And then this one, I'm just going to point this out to you because this is, this is some of the things we've got to work as a photographer. This is the ladies' bath in the Alcazar in Spain. So, the southern part of Spain, Andalusia, it was, conquered by the Moors, and architecture is all Moorish until it was taken over in 1492 by the Spaniards. So this is the ladies' bath, deep, deep down in here. It's just a shallow water. This is where the women used to come bathe. The blue right here is sunlight coming through the open areas up above to let the light in. So it's not artificial man-made lights. It's the difference between the lighting down here and the sunlight coming through. So if we would have had our camera set on a white balance like sunlight, we wouldn't have gotten that gold and that blue. And but yet if we have our camera set on auto white balance, then we pull it out. Also, this is, or was before COVID, a huge tourist attraction. And this is one of the places that I definitely wanted to get photos through doing my pre-trip analysis. This is where I wanted to get photos. So when I took my group down here, we had about 8 or 10 people with us. I told them, everybody move to the front of the crowd as the crowd moves away. And once you get to the front of the platform, the end of the bath, everybody lock arms and do not let anybody in our way. So we became like a crowd that was getting the symmetrical view, because everybody wants the symmetrical view, of course, with their cell phone cameras and everything else. But then we gradually started moving to the left and right, so everybody could get all of our group could get the left shot and the right shot. And sometimes that's one of the advantages of traveling with a group, because if I had been there by myself, I would have had to muscle in and out of each one of them, because there's probably 1,000 people trying to get this shot at one time, or maybe not 1,000, maybe 150 or something like that. So it kind of gives you an idea of where it's a good idea sometimes to travel with a group of photographers, because we had a plan, on how to get this. Yeah. Okay, good analysis. So repeated patterns. Anytime we see those repeated patterns, then we as photographers should know that, okay, there's a photo here in that repeated pattern, those repeated patterns. There's a photo here. Figure out what it is, eliminate anything that's unnecessary, figure out where you're trying to get the viewer's eye to go to and from. Repeated patterns, repeated patterns. So getting everything that's not important out of the way. And this was totally cleaned up. So there's an electrical wire. There's some sort of electrical wire running through here that I took out. There were no telling how many other little doodads on this stupid wall. And I cleaned it all up because they just needed to rewire that whole place, and get rid of those wires. I don't care if that building's 500 years old. They needed to do something different with that wire, So repeated patterns. And then there's this point counterpoint, which is an interesting concept. Crisp, smooth, hard, soft, point, counterpoint, the two opposing elements in the frame. So smooth compared to soft or hard. This is a running wildebeest, and I'm using the motion pan that I've taught you all in some other classes, where shutter priority 45th of a second or 50th of a second, and then put the camera on rapid release, and then follow as fast as you can with the running wildebeest, clicking away. And if you can move the camera at the exact same speed as the wildebeest, because you're at a slow shutter speed, the back will streak, but the wildebeest will be frozen. So it's called motion panning. You can do it with bicycles, motorcycles, running animals, flying birds. It's a good thing, but it's point counterpoint. It's that blur, crisp, right next to each other. So point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. So got the you know, the solid doorway, but then the sailboat coming up, you know, coming off to the side. Point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. So wrinkled old hand, soft newborn hand, point, counterpoint. So we do these, it's the opposites connecting in the same frame. Point, counterpoint. So point, counterpoint can also be the curve against the hard. So we've got the curve of the dome against the crispness of the bell tower. So we've got that point, counterpoint. And this is one of those photos when it's one way in black and white, it's another way in color. So this might be finished product, either way, black and white or color. So it can go either way. But imagine in this photo, if there were a sailboat or a boat out here or one of these areas, it would just take away from it, draw your eye from it. So that point, counterpoint, curve versus the crisp. So we've got that point, counterpoint, not as obvious here, but just that little bit of reading left on the bed with the eyeglasses, and then the softness in the back. So the point, counterpoint, trying anyway. What do you think?
Like it.
It works for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, versus everything being in focus.
Yeah.
Point, counterpoint. Do you see the counterpoint?
The vase is off to the right,
Base off to the right, yeah,
and the door.
the door.
Even just the wall and the bikes. I mean, he's just like boom, and then the rest of it's like
Yeah.
the other.
Do you see the cat?
Or the cat, yeah. I was just saying the cat
Do you see the cat?
sneaking in.
So to me, you know, it's that looking at everything. And then in Cajun, there's a word lagniappe, you know, the little extra treat. So the baker's dozen where you get one extra roll in the 12, you know, it's the counterpoint of everything being so masculine. And then all of a sudden that little cat's head just down in the corner of it. So it's that point, counterpoint. And maybe he'll sneak in, and the man tolerating the cat as well. And point, counterpoint with primary colors.
Mm.
So we've got red and we've got blue, polarizer to get rid of the glare off the water. And this one to me is a little bit more complex.
Mhm.
I like it as a standalone photograph, but the elements are pretty separated. So what do you think? And you don't have to like it just because it's my picture. What do you think?
I think it works. You have this little boat, and then the huge, massive, all you see is just water. But then you also have this structure on the bottom left that also looks kind of massive against the little boat.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Gives you that feeling that you're way up there, you know, and that boat's really far down.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lynette?
I love the blue dome that dominates the picture to me. And then the white kind of, it's like, it makes me feel like I'm kind of at the edge. And then I like the little boat down below and the big, massive blue, really blue, clear blue. It makes me want to be there.
Yeah. 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 You know, the elements are not close and in exact positions, you know, that boat maybe would have been, you know, photographically perfect if it were right up here. But it's that point counterpoint, big, small, red, blue, point counterpoint.
Well, the big dome and the little boat.
Yeah.
Mhm.
One of those where you look at it and you think there's got to be a picture here.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how am I going to put these together? There's got to be a picture here. So the two colors again, you know, the primary, or excuse me, the complementary colors against each other, the blues and the yellows, the oranges and the yellows, the oranges and the greens. So we've got all the colors that we need, but that point counterpoint because of those complementary colors. Point counterpoint because of those primary colors, yellows and red, yellows and blues, those two primary colors against each other. We see that as a photographer and we should know that there's a photo here. I need to stop. I need to figure out how to make it work. I need to work on this and see how I can get things going. Twilight color, that blue hour against those golden of the lights below. So that blue and that gold. So now we've got that point counterpoint with that blue and that gold, trying to make it work with the composition. Tension, that's smooth versus rough. The old Swaro skeleton against that softness of the mourning dove. So that point, counterpoint, rough, smooth, dead, alive, that contrast of the two of them. That smooth versus that soft, smooth and soft. Yeah, I couldn't believe it when that red admiral landed on that sunflower. It was like, oh my gosh. Photo gods, you know. I've been living life right. Thank you. I needed a break, you know. So smooth versus hard. So even with the crystal ball. Curves and squares. So once again, those opposites of each other, you know, trying to figure out how to make it work, how to line it all up. Didn't line up exactly like I wanted it, but still playing around with that smooth versus those squares. And then we've got space-based composition, which starts becoming a bit more complex, and tensions of opposites. So the squares versus the circles. And then that beautiful blue sky. So that white against that blue. So playing around with the space-based composition. The space between the subjects pulls them together. And this is an area where I don't think I'm as strong as I want to be. It's the figuring out what the elements are and working with the space that pulls them together. We've obviously got a red door and a blue sky. So that's the red and the blue. We've got the white. We've got that little bit of golden in there that gives us that little bit of contrast. We've got the rectangles. We've got the circles.
Triangles.
So where's the photo? And that's where I think as a photographer, we just have to sit there and with the camera up against our eye and look at that rectangle and figure out how we put it all together. So I think there's several of these just with these elements. So here's one. Here's two. Whoops, one or two. So what do you think, A or B? A or B?
I like both.
Yeah. I like B with the contrast of the blue sky and the red, having, you know, that red verse and that blue verse with the white.
What you think, Gloria?
Yeah, I think I like B. With, you know, the two red windows there. Some of that, I like that better. The blue is closer to it. in the photo. I find this one a little more interesting. And the for other one, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to see on this
Uh-huh.
one.
I think you get more texture in the second one. You get that rough and smooth.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the rough close up of the tile and then the smooth of it in the background.
When you've got the curved archway with the squared off steps on the left too, you know, very angular versus curve in there as well.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Good. So those contrasts. Smooth, the sharp, smooth.
Mhm.
Then this is one where for me, when I saw the purple olives with the with the purple awning, okay, these are going to frame it. Now I just need the perfect person to walk through.
Uh,
And so I know that I'm going to focus on the olives, and I'm just waiting now for the perfect person. And I can sit there for the next 15 or 20 minutes waiting for the perfect person to walk through.
So, Kathy, something like this. You approach, you're walking down the street, you see this. Do you compose the picture from just looking at it, or do you go ahead and put the camera up to your eye and compose it when you're looking through the lens?
Usually I see the elements I want, and then I put the lens up to my eye, the camera to my eye, and then I start composing it, zooming in and out, moving up and down, moving lower, higher. And once I find the composition that I want, then I'm trying to keep it straight so that, the lines are straight. And in this case, then just waiting for the right guy to walk through.
I see.
So a lot of it is because your eye sees at 50, like a 50 millimeter lens,
Mhm.
but you put a 24 millimeter lens up to your face and now you're looking at something totally different.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
now your field of view is wider than what we've got naturally. Or
Yeah.
you put a super wide and you're there, or you put a telephoto and now you're there. So I have to put the camera up to my eye.
Okay.
I might see the elements, but I've got to really look through the viewfinder.
Okay.
And for street photography, it's interesting because I see with that 24 to 105 millimeter lens.
Huh.
Yeah, that's what I see. And if I take another lens out on the street to try to force me to see something different, I am constantly seeing with that 24 to 105.
Hmm.
Yep. We each have our own lens that we like. So that point counterpoint, that contrast, the frigate birds following the boat in the Galapagos. And if the elements in the picture aren't all brought together, then you see how we don't pull it together.
Mhm.
So it's either the picture over on the left and don't include the stuff on the right, or work on the right and don't include the stuff on the left.
Mhm.
Two separate photos.
Yeah.
You can't pull them together. So they don't work. You've either got a photo on the left or you got a photo on the right. You could almost divide these up and show them two different ways. So think too about positive space and negative space in your images. And once again, this gets a little bit more advanced, but think about positive space and negative space. So here we've got the positive space where the falcon is, but that whole other place over on the side is the negative space. And as a standalone photo, this is where you've got to decide whether this is the way you want to present it or not. I do this a lot because then the magazines can use all that negative space for text. So I get paid for a 2-page spread. So I end up doing this a lot. This is just the way that I kind of frame a lot of times if I can get that negative space. So it's one picture, if it's just the falcon, but then if I can put that background on the falcon, then it's a whole other space. But then here's the same falcon in another way.
It's a baby.
No.
That's full grown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So positive space, negative space. Noticing that background, noticing how pretty that background is. The fruit feeder is right underneath off camera that you can't see. The birds are landing on that branch. Some of them are hanging upside down before they jump down to the fruit feeder.
Perfect spot.
Yeah. Yeah. But then when you see how pretty that background is, you go, oh, okay, cool.
Mhm.
Let's include that negative space in there because now it just makes the photo. And then you can do the same thing when you're doing something like textures. We got a lot of negative space in this photo, but then because of that negative space, it doesn't work as a standalone photo, but it works well as a texture. And I think I'm teaching masterclass texture for those of you that haven't attended that one. I think it comes
need
up
that
shortly. Yeah. So if you're going to use textures, put textures on your images. Negative space works really well with those textures. So which one is better for you? This one? Or this one? This one? A or B?
A. Because that little building just crops out too much in B and just kind of like it doesn't belong there.
Okay. So A or B? Gloria and Lynette, which one do you think?
I'm still trying to look at, see, tell the difference in it.
Sure.
Look at the bottom left corner.
Yeah. I like A.
Mhm.
The man looking up a little bit too as he's
Yeah,
walking.
it's got his head up just a little bit.
Yeah.
What you think, Lynette?
I think I like A.
This one?
I can see the corner.
So
It's
A,
it's a different angle.
slight bit.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is once again in Chef Shawin, the blue town. And you see it's just all different shades of blue over the eons or years. But, you know, if this guy who lives there also wears a blue jalaba, then, you know, I'm going to follow this guy around. And so that's what I did. Just followed him around, you know, put him wherever he was going, whatever looked good. So do you like this one? A or B? A or B?
I like A.
I like them both, but B, he's looking right at you, but
Lynette, which one? A?
I like B.
You like the cat looking right at you?
Yes, I like seeing those eyes. And it makes the bicycle and the what is that? Kind
like,
of clearer, bolder.
Gloria?
I like A. I like not this one, that one better. I also like the shadows that the bicycle throws on the wall.
Shadows of the bicycle, yeah. Julie?
I like the fact that the whole bike is in there, you know, and the other one, it just kind of distracts me that it's like, it's missing its arm, but I still like the cat, you know? That's cool. Cause yeah, you get the shadow, the whole shadow of the bike and everything in the A.
Yeah.
And you see, it's just a minor movement.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think we just need to stay with the picture and work it. Or do you like that better?
Ooh.
And so you see now that the sun, the cloud went in front of the sun, so we have no shadow at all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's the cat. The cat's the same color as the tire, the turquoise of the bike.
The building, the whole thing, yeah.
But not including too much. Don't show too much.
Right.
Wow.
So you've got that versus that.
Is that in Costa Rica?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mm.
You know, so that versus that.
Oh, I
They're
love
both
the first
awesome.
one.
The hanging off.
I love that one.
Yeah.
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 It almost looks like Kermit, like the Muppets or something.
Exactly.
Oh, I
Exactly.
love
Very,
that one.
One of those hang in there cards.
yeah. Very much a Kermit the Frog. Yeah. And which one is better in this situation? This one, A or B?
Ooh.
Mm.
Oh,
A or B?
I love B.
B?
Yeah.
I like both.
Mhm.
I like the seeing the a little bit more of the view, and I like the more close up and the lights.
Where is this?
Cordoba,
Cordoba.
Spain.
Oh, Spain.
Cordoba.
Yeah, yeah. We'll return to Andalusia, I think 2023, if I'm not mistaken.
I just think it's so interesting to have the reflection of the lights on each of those arches that you see them here, but you see them so much more here, and then they're reflecting back into the water, and you don't have that structure at the beginning of the bridge, but I don't think you miss much. I mean, they're two totally different pictures.
Mhm.
This frames the whole thing, but the interest in the lighting is much larger part of the photograph in the second one.
Mm-hmm. So can't just take one picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the sky changed just in that little bit of change too.
Well, you know, it's more twilight, so it's more about the sky here. But
Yeah.
once the twilight has faded and we're not totally into night yet, then we
Mhm.
can kind of work on intimate details a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still see that leading line coming through there. And then, you know, where you want the viewer's eye to settle. So drawing the viewer along the bridge, letting the viewer settle on the cathedral. So, you know, you're just designing it so that people have enough stuff to look at, but not distracted too much.
Oh,
Wow.
Ooh,
Camouflage.
camouflage.
Camouflage, exactly. Exactly.
That's cool.
So you see where your eye goes to the eye of the bird, but then
Mhm.
we're camouflaged, and now you got your positive space and your negative space.
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
A little bit more of these playing around. The leading lines. And this is simply just putting the camera up against the columns with a wide angle lens. So no tripod or anything, just holding the camera against the columns.
Hmm. I do like taking pictures of church ceilings.
Yes. And they're so beautiful. And you know, with this one, I just rest the camera on my forehead. So I'm looking through the viewfinder, but it's really just resting on my forehead to give it a little bit more stability, and then trying to line all the corners up. It's going to take a little bit of work later on in Photoshop, but you know, just trying to line the corners up. Yeah, you know, if some wonderful architect gave us that symmetry, why not take advantage of it in a photograph? And then frames, leading lines, starbursts. So whether it's birds or whether it's architecture, we've still got to think about where do we position our subjects and how do we use that positive space against that negative space. Yeah. Contrast, the white against the color, points, repeated patterns, da 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 da. You see, playing with them. And so that one little bit of color in the cattle drive, South America. And then where do we position him? You know, that positive space, that negative space, when he came out on that point and looked out, was like, oh, you know, bless your little heart, you know, for a Jaguar, you know. And so that hard against soft, point counterpoint, you see that?
Neat.
Yeah. Light against dark, hard against soft. I'm a cat lover. Those of you that are dog lovers, you'll do the same thing with the dogs. I'll do the same thing with the cats.
I'm more the cat
Yeah.
when it comes to a picture.
So that point counterpoint, you know, that soft, that hard. He gave me a really nasty look. But you know, we were not supposed to be taking pictures during prayer, and I couldn't resist. And he turned his head and looked at me, and it was like, oh man, penance for the next 5 years. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. That point counterpoint, that hard, soft against each other.
What a face. Wow. Two
And-
faces, great faces.
Just wishing that they were closer. But, you know, there's that too much distance between them. But at the same time,
Wow.
you know, I like it. But then here's the man contemplating his bread purchase, doing the same thing that the baby was doing,
Yeah.
doing on his thumb. Yeah. So it doesn't always have to be in the middle of the frame. Everything that we do doesn't always have to be following the lines. We can have that blank space in a picture. And in my case, I think the blank space really adds to a picture many times. You know, looking the same way out of the frame. Back in Chef Sherwin with the guys. Complementary colors, those greens and those blues, yellows and blues. So we should be noticing all of these things and then putting them together into our compositions and using that positive space, negative space. You notice that his head could be on the golden third. And then we've got his hands, you know, still in the frame. So, you know, it all depends which element we want to apply to it. But I think you see that they all kind of come together to give us that composition that we're looking for. So, questions?
Just need to
Ideas?
Start practicing.
Practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Need to go somewhere to practice.
It's like, where do I need to go today?
Oh, I want you which lens?
Pardon? Oh, the witch lens? Yeah, witch lens is coming up on the 19th.
Talk a
I'll
little
see
bit
you
more about
then.
that. What is
I'll
that?
have to sign up.
That is, which lens should I use?
Oh, okay.
And it's just all the lenses on the market, why you would use one over the other, when you would buy one over the other, my opinions. And then it's kind of nice too, because the students who are in there give us their opinions.
Okay.
So it's actually you're going to talk about the different kind of lenses. I'm thinking more of why do you use a 24, 40 or 100 versus 100 or 500 millimeter lens.
Correct.
That's what I'm thinking.
That's what it is.
Okay.
Yes, it's all the lenses that are out there and why you would want to use them or not want to use them. And how you can
Okay.
use them, like that picture that I showed you in the desert where you tilt the camera
Right.
down, tilt the camera up, you know,
Yes.
how you use lenses, what you use lenses for.
Yes.
Because remember, your lenses are your tools. You got a
Yes.
toolbox there. You call it a camera bag, but it's a toolbox.
Mhm.
And we pull lenses out of that toolbox, just like a carpenter pulls tools out of his or her tool belt. And we
Mhm.
got to think of them as tools. Which one do we take?
Well, it's like when I got my new camera, my husband said, he goes, I have my tools, you need your tools to do your photography.
Mhm.
Okay.
Exactly
Yep.
right.
I keep telling you I need a new lens.
You do, but you got to make sure you need that new lens for a reason. There's a
Yes.
reason you need that new lens. It's not just because everybody says you should have that lens. You need that lens for a reason.
Well, I need like those big telephoto, is it telephotos or wide angles that everybody was using like in Galveston?
Well, it depends. We were using telephotos on the birds and wide angles on the
I mean, I have a telephoto, but I want
a
a
bigger
wide
one.
angle, I think, too. I don't know. I need them both.
Need them all. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I completed my set, I think.
And then the introduction to night photography is just introducing you to night photography. And then I'll do a master class on night photography coming up. That's the 4 series. Gloria, have you done a master class with me?
No,
No, I know Julie has and Lynette has. They're a series of 4 classes with homework assignments, and then I share the homework assignments and we talk about them and everything.
oh, okay.
They're in depth.
Yeah, it sounds like,
They're
yeah.
definitely in depth. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had one, I was looking at your classes, Kathy. You have one, it's nature. Is it advanced nature, or
Yeah.
I would be interested with that if you put it.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to teach that as a face-to-face 6-hour class. And I can't
Wow.
quite wrap my head around how to do it online,
I understand.
because
But
it's kind of a throw everything at you class,
yes,
Yeah. But thank you for asking. I might try to do that as a master class. Yeah.
okay, I'd be interested with that, but I'll see you on May 19th for the lenses.
Good.
Yeah.
And then
I do that texture class. I need that. Is that the evening?
the texture class, I can't remember when that is, Glo.
I'll look.
Yeah, it's on the calendar. So I'll put more classes on as we go along. And
Cool.
remember, any class that you feel like you want or you need, then ask me and I'll put them on the next go around.
And your trips?
Yeah. We just opened the Costa Rica trips yesterday. So yeah.
Kathy, I just got a word today that our Norway trip is canceled. So
Well, then I'm going to send you a brochure.
yes, please.
Okay. I didn't
For
want to send
November,
you.
Costa Rica.
I didn't want to send you a brochure because I knew you were waiting on that Norway trip.
I'm disappointed, but then again, I have Costa Rica to look
Okay.
forward to with you.
Good. I will send you a brochure then on that one.
Yes,
So-
Hey,
please.
Kathy, can you do like payments or do you have to pay it all at once? Let's say if I did the February 2022.
You can do payments. She'll let you, I think you put down 750 and then she'll let you pay it off. Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah.
I need to do one of these so bad.
Yeah.
We need to go to Africa, or I mean, Alaska.
Yeah. Alaska is March of 2022. I
Oh.
haven't announced that one yet. And
Wow.
that's
Okay, I need my wide angle for that one.
for the whales.
Oh.
It's doing whales. Yeah.
Wow. And you are going to Ireland this July.
We're like your Norway.
I know.
We're giving it until the 15th of May, which
Okay.
is next week, because the latest out of Northern Ireland is just real flaky.
Yep,
So we don't know. Europe can't decide what it's going to do.
I know.
And that's unfortunate, but we know Costa Rica is doing what it's doing. And so we're at least going to Costa Rica.
Perfect.
I just
Definitely.
need to win the lottery and go on all of them.
That's what my husband says.
Yeah. And then, of course, you've got all my information. You all already know that already. Okay, questions for me.
Thank you. This was great. This is
Thank
just
you. This is great.
really
Very
helped
awesome. Thank
help
you.
me to think really consciously and constructively whenever I look in that lens or in the viewfinder, start
Yes.
looking for things. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
this
Yes.
is
Good. Yeah, it's just looking through that lens and trying to make order out of it.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, my friends, thank you very much. It was good spending the morning with you all.
Thank you. It's good to
Thank
see
you. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay,
Thanks.
bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.